Well, today you get to ride along with me as I explore 3 different products that I'm interested in knowing more about that would be applicable to, well, really, any ranch or livestock operation of any shape or size. Now, if you're like me, you're not necessarily looking for shortcuts, but you are looking for ways to work smarter, which is essentially at the heart of this show. So today we're going to learn about these 3 companies or products, the first being Barn Owl.
Put it simply, we do remote camera systems for the ag market focused on cellular connected cameras.
Then we'll head another direction with my questions on Neogen's blood pregnancy tests.
The blood-based test actually looks for that particular protein.
Finally, we'll look at RanchBot.
Provide ranchers real-time monitoring of water anywhere on the ranch.
Trust me on this, it's a show that offers a pretty good return on investment on this episode of the Working Ranch Radio Show. And this is the Working Ranch Radio Show. I'm Justin Mills. Thanks for joining us here on our program today. And yeah, as you heard there in the opening, we're going to be looking at 3 different products that they're products that I've been thinking about or looking at and trying to evaluate myself. What's its use? How would it be utilized? What's it going to save me in terms of labor, or what's it going to do for me? That return on investment is always in the back of your mind when you start looking at new products in our industry. So I think you're going to find the information useful. For some of you might have already heard, might already have these products. That's great. But for others, maybe you're in the same boat as I am, and so you have questions, and I hope today's program will answer some of those, or at least give you some information that you can move forward on your own accord should you want to. Now, I want to remind you that coming up later in the show, the Captain Tim O'Byrne will be in for this week's edition of Tim's 2 Cents. Unfortunately, we're not going to hear from meteorologist Don Day. Now, I don't know if you had an opportunity, but last week, meteorologist Don Day was in for the entire show as he gave us the fall 2024 and winter 2025 weather outlook. We also kind of dipped a little bit into the spring and summer of 2025 as well. But if you're kind of wondering what that's going to look like for not only the country, but also for your particular region as well, I encourage you to go and check out last week's episode 182. You can find that on our podcast site at workingranchradio.com, or you can also pick it up on your favorite podcast provider as well. Let's take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll jump right into it and get into our first of the 3 products that we're going to be looking at here today. It's an exciting show. I think you're going to find the information useful, especially if you're in the mindset of how can I reduce my overhead costs and reduce labor and save some time. All 3 of these products really hit that mark in some form or fashion, so I think you'll enjoy our show here today. This segment today brought to you by Inherent Select from Zoetis. Back your instincts and feel more confident in your replacement selection this fall with Inherent Select. Visit beefgenetics.com/working ranch to get started.
Build a better herd with genomic EPDs for your commercial females. A cattleman is only as good as his tools. So add Inherent Select from Zoetis to your shoot side lineup to back your intuition and to help reveal the replacements with the potential to be the most productive and profitable in your herd. Keep the best. Sell the rest. Zoetis makes it easy. Order free supplies today so you can easily collect tissue samples when you work cattle this fall. Visit beefgenetics.com/working ranch to get started.
Welcome back to the Working Ranch Radio Show. The first product we're going to look at here today is Barn Owl. And joining us here on the program is Josh Pfeiffer, who is the founder and CEO of Barn Owl. Josh, thanks for joining us here today on the Working Ranch Radio Show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thrilled to be here.
You bet. Well, Josh, as we continue to see technology expanding and becoming integrated into the ranching industry, your company, Barn Owl, is part of that expansion and integration that we're seeing. And I was first made aware of Barn Owl through a neighbor of mine who was using your cameras for monitoring stock tanks and also mineral tubs and things like that he could monitor those. And so before we get into some of the nitty-gritty details of everything, I guess, first of all, just essentially explain from a 20,000 foot level what Barn Owl is.
Yeah. So put it simply, we do remote camera systems for the ag market focused on cellular connected cameras. We do some work with the Department of Defense that we do some other stuff, some satellite, some mesh networking systems that quite frankly are quite expensive. So for the ag market, we try to keep it really economical with the cellular connected devices.
Okay. So Josh, I know I'm not alone as a rancher when I ask these next questions in just regards of explaining how this setup would work, because I know myself and there's other guys, a lot of folks in the same boat that have remote locations that they're wanting to monitor. And the cost of physically driving there every day and doing that is expensive. We've done it for several years, but is there a better, easier, quicker way to do that? So walk us through what a setup would look like with Barn Owl.
Yeah. So, I grew up on ranches. So, I understand the pain. I have to drive around for a few hours a day, check water, check the fence, make sure the gates are closed, feed troughs full, that kind of stuff. So, but it's simply, we have cellular cameras that are battery and solar powered. We have some universal mounts. You can strap them to anything you want, a pole, a fence, a tree, a stand in the middle of nowhere. And then you can just monitor your assets from any internet connected device, your cell phone, your computer, iPad, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. I'll get into the specific products because there's about 3 different types of cameras, I believe, that you have, or some different setups that you do. But I think the first thing is, for me, is, okay, what about your off-grid type system? Explain how that works, that in the fact of getting that information back to me. How off-grid are we talking? I mean, what does it need?
Yeah, for the ag market and our cellular connected device, when we say off, it means no power or local Wi-Fi or wired connectivity, right? So you do have to have cell service, which I realize in the mountains can be a challenge, but where the vast majority of our customers are in the plains, we typically have really good service. So the cameras will transmit images and video through cell service to our servers that are cloud hosted through Amazon. And then you use your computer or your phone to access that media from anywhere.
I know you do have some other type setups. Let's just kind of hit those briefly and how you would see them integrating, or would they be something applicable to the ag world?
I would say for now, we're focused on cellular cameras for the ag. We do have some stuff in the future that we're excited about. And 2 things I'll mention is T-Mobile actually has a partnership with Starlink for what's called direct to cell. So we're going to start testing it probably in 2025. So hopefully hitting the commercial market in 2026 would be anywhere you can see a Starlink satellite, you have cell service. So we'll be able to transmit image to video through Starlink. And so it resolves the issues of not having cell service in the mountains now or whatever it is. And then we are also working on a long range Wi-Fi product, more for kind of home and barnyard security, right? This would not be the remote tank monitoring product, but more if you want to secure your house and the barns around it. It's called Halo Wi-Fi. It has a range of up to about 1 kilometer. So you put a little gateway in your house and you can monitor anything around within about 1 kilometer. And so we're excited about those 2 products coming next year.
Mm-hmm. So one of the questions I guess I'd have is, these are set up in remote locations. And so what's the safety of making sure they don't walk off?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like if something in the middle of nowhere, if somebody wants to destroy it or steal it, they probably will. Right? We sell lock boxes, we sell locks. With that said, stuff's going to happen, right? So anybody that's on one of our kind of prepaid subscription plans they start as $7 and go to basically $25. So just depending on how much you're going to use the cameras, we do basically an unlimited purchase plan. So if the camera's stolen, damaged, whatever it is, we'll replace it for you.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about what we're getting back from this camera. Are we talking still photos, video, audio? What all can be done and get in terms of the data coming back that I'm going to get and be able to monitor?
Yeah. With the current products, more kind of just the remote monitoring, you can get back images and videos and you can vary the resolution. That's one thing we do that our competitors don't. You can get a very affordable kind of thumbnail size image. Or if it's more of a security application, you can do a very high res video or image. And when I say video, in that case, it's like a short video clip, about 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. We are working on releasing a live stream video camera that will probably come out next spring or summer, more for your security applications, not really needed for your tank monitoring, obviously. And in order to trigger the camera, they're either motion activated. You can set up a time lapse, send me 3 pictures of the day at 8, 12, and 4, or whatever it is. or you can go into the app and do a remote command so you can see what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about then adjusting that on. Is that something that you have to do at the camera? What's the interface, I guess, for me as a monitor standpoint, where I can go in and I can look at that and adjust settings?
So we make settings adjustment easy through our software. So using either your phone or computer, you can adjust all that stuff we talked about, the trigger settings, the image and video quality settings. And not only can you do it for an individual camera, but you can select an entire group of cameras and change all the settings at once. So you don't have to do it 10 times or ever, however many cameras you have.
Mm-hmm. How are we holding up for wind and heat and cold? Because that'd be the other side of things too, is the cold time of the year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the cameras are fully weatherproof. We started selling cameras in 2017, and all those 2017 cameras are quite frankly still out there, right? But that said, I understand we're putting electronics in the middle of very harsh conditions year round. Stuff's going to happen, whether it be lightning, hail, hard rain, birds pecking at it, ants crawling in it. We've seen all those. So again, we kind of have, if you're on a prepaid subscription plan, we will replace camera for whatever reason if it stops working. Mm-hmm. And, even if you don't have that prepaid subscription, they all get the 2-year warranty.
Okay. A bit ago, you talked a little bit about installation. Let's just talk about kind of some concepts or ways that you've seen this installed that seems to work best and hold up to wind mainly or harsh weather. Yeah.
And that's one thing we've realized is we have to provide a variety of options for mounting, because it could be a metal pole, could be a wood fence post, a tree, a building, whatever it is. So to this point, we've had a large variety of mounting solutions that our customers could choose from, which quite frankly is okay, but it's created some confusion. Like, which one do I pick? So actually now we're just getting in stock what we call a universal mount, where you can really mount it to anything. The bundle has everything you need for a wide variety of mounting solutions. This new one we have is kind of an industrial grade mount. So it's ball mount, you can twist it whichever way you want, and it's very secure. It's actually rated to hold about 5 times the weight of the cameras we have for the ag market. So very durable and very easy to mount to any surface you need.
Mm-hmm. Josh, I probably should ask this when we were talking about the off-grid type setup on this. And one of the things, our options, of course, is with it being remote, you said it didn't need power. So it's a little solar panel, as I've seen in here. There's a little solar panel. How does that work as far as it staying functioning through some of these cold conditions? Of course, wintertime, short daylight, and everything staying charged and functioning during those cold hours with that solar power.
Yeah, for sure. So the batteries have internal batteries, which are AA batteries, which are quite frankly just a backup to the solar panel, because the solar panel itself has a battery in it. And we have a few different solar panels, and really depending on where you're at, we have a smaller one that if you're in the south or kind of central part of the U.S. where you're getting sun, that will definitely carry the camera year round, no problem. If you're in the north, you're up in Minnesota, it's dark and cloudy, we'd recommend using our bigger solar panel. And it has plenty of power to carry the camera year round, especially at kind of moderate use rates of the camera.
Okay. Josh, on the cellular connectivity part of it, I know there's some remote places that just have maybe just a weak bar of connection. How much cellular connectivity do we need for this to operate?
Yeah. Obviously, that's a difficult one to answer cleanly, because there's a lot of it depends when it comes to wireless signals. With that said, if you have a bar on your cell phone, like 99% of the time, the cameras will be, because they've got way bigger antennas than your cell phone has. So if you have a bar on your cell phone, typically the camera will see 2 to 3 bars, right? With that said, we understand there's still challenges here, probably maybe in the trees, in a valley, on the mountain where signal is weak and there may be problems. And so we do work with all of the carriers. We ship a multi-carrier SIM that works with US Cellular, AT&T, and T-Mobile. And then we also have a camera now that's working with Verizon. So we can provide a multi-carrier solution.
Okay. All right. So I saved the best question for last, and you've kind of already addressed it a little bit here and there as you've answered at different times, but cost. What are we looking at?
Yeah, we have a few different cameras. And it just depends on what you bundle with them when it comes to solar and mounts and all that. But anyway, you're talking essentially kind of $199 to $399, just depending on capabilities and all the different bundles you want. And so we try to keep it affordable. And just to be transparent, we're continue to work with our vendors, and we're trying to drive that cost down. So I'm actually going to see our vendors here in a couple months, and we're trying to see if we can bring in something even lower cost. But in general, you can plan kind of $199 to $399, just depending on the capabilities and the bundle you can build for yourself.
Okay. And that's some of the things I know. I've seen some ads of yours on Facebook and some different places about getting a hold of you guys and your customer service folks and building kind of a system. That's kind of what you're really kind of talking about is get a hold of you guys when you're looking at something, because more than likely, I mean, I realize, one camera might be, somebody might just want one camera, but a lot of times for us in ranching, it's more than one camera.
Yeah, for sure. And we try to I'm not trying to scare anybody with the bundling. If you go to our website, we already have the pre-built bundle. So it's not this complicated process of choosing 8 different accessories, essentially choose which bundle you want. And you're right. Typically what we see with customers, particularly ranchers, they'll buy 1 or 2 and try it out, realize they really like it. And then over the years, they expand. Each year they add 3 to 4 cameras, and we have ranchers run 40, 50, 60 cameras. And we see our customers get more and more creative over the years. It's not just water tanks and gates, right? There's all these other things you could be watching, to include wildlife and livestock, that we see continue to grow every year.
Well, Josh, did we leave anything out? Did I not ask something that you normally get asked by ranchers?
No, I just, I appreciate the time, and I grew up driving around on, whether it be a the Ford F-150, the four-wheelers, the motorcycle, or even the horse, right, for hours, which is fun for a while. But when you have 800 other things to do, the efficiency of just being able to pull up your phone and see the status of all your water tanks and your gates is important. And that's really what drives me, is like operational efficiency, and give people their time back to live the lives that they want to live.
You bet. Well, that's exactly why this was an interest for me to learn more about, was just for that sake, in fact, of pickups aren't getting cheaper, four-wheelers aren't getting cheaper, side-by-sides aren't getting cheaper, and some of this country is pretty remote, and it's just nice when you can look at something and know where things are at with that. So, Josh, appreciate you joining us here today on the Working Ranch Radio Show.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
You bet. And again, that was Josh Pfeiffer, who is the founder and CEO of Barn Owl today, giving us a little bit more explanation about what all they offer and what they can do with the products that they have. No doubt something that is a labor saver, time saver in all. And as he had mentioned too, I want to point out that he's coming at this approach growing up on a ranch. As he had mentioned, he spent time doing the same thing that we're all doing and trying to find ways to avoid having to do it, to save a little time, labor, and expense on our operation as well. So if you want to find out more, you can go to their website at barnowl.tech. Again, the website is barnowl.tech is the website you can go to and find out more about their company and the products that they offer. Well, we have still 2 more products that we're going to be looking at here today. Coming up after the break, we're going to be talking about a blood pregnancy test, something you can do right by yourself in your own operation. Send the blood samples in and get results back. We're going to learn more about that coming up after the break. But before we get there, this segment today brought to you by the American Gelbvieh Association. Meet modern industry demands for feedlots and carcass traits with Gelbvieh and Balancer Genetics. Find out more at gelbvieh.org.
Capitalize on crossbreeding with Gelbvieh and Balancer bulls. Raise replacement females with added fertility, increased longevity, and greater productivity. Gelbvieh and Balancer influenced females wean more pounds of calf per cow exposed. In the feed yard, Balancer influenced cattle offer increased performance, improved feed efficiency, and have excellent carcass merit. Balancers add the pounds, make the grade, and deliver the value. Make your crossbreeding count with Gelbvieh and Balancer Genetics.
Well, the recent drop in interest rates by the Fed, that real estate market's probably going to pick up a little bit, and ag real estate's going to not be any different. And you know what I find with a lot of companies when it comes to agriculture real estate, they look at your land asset pretty much like a piece of fresh meat, and they really don't provide many other options but to sell your asset. And that's kind of a tough position when you're in that, when it's been a family ranch for many, many years, and looking at selling off that heritage, that legacy. And wouldn't it be nice if you could just sit across from someone there at the kitchen table that could provide multiple options about maybe some other options you could do with your land assets. Well, at Hall & Hall, that's something that they've been offering to agriculture folks for many, many years. While selling might be what you're considering, have you thought about all your options? Hall & Hall is a multifaceted in their ability to not only broker real estate throughout the United States and Canada, but they also provide long-term financing for buyers, also appraisals, brokerage, and auction services for landowners. But yet at the end of it, they still would have a desire to see land stay in production agriculture, whether it's with the current ranch family owners retaining and keeping that land and looking at other options, or new buyers. Hall & Hall can assist with everything from day-to-day operations to hiring a ranch manager to even lease negotiations. And here's another thing. Hall & Hall have folks all across the country, which means you can work with someone that knows your country and understands your type of operation. Since 1946, Hall & Hall has been dedicated to the land and landowners. And if you're at a point where you're ready to sit down and talk about the future of your land asset, or even just brainstorm some options, reach out to the folks at Hall & Hall. You can find more information by going to their website at hallandhall.com. Well, the next product that I want to look at is a blood pregnancy test. And this is not a technology that's just, again, as I said earlier in the show, that's just brand new. It's been around for a while. However, it's been something I've been a little bit curious about. It's not something I have used, but I'm looking at maybe there's a one-off or there's certain types of situations where something like this would be a viable option to look at. So joining us here today on the program is Dr. Susan Hinckley with Neogen. And Dr. Hinckley, thanks for joining us here today on the Working Ranch Radio Show.
Well, thank you very much for the invite. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, as you and I were talking before we went on air, we're going to be talking and having you tell us a little bit more about Neogen's blood-based pregnancy test. And as we were talking about, it's not necessarily relatively new. It's been around for a while. However, I think for some of us in ranching, we've heard about it. Maybe a few have tried it, but we really just haven't explored it. And I'm curious myself how it could be possibly implemented as well. So to start off with, let's just talk about generally what a blood-based pregnancy test is.
Yeah, so as an overview of what the test is, when a cow gets bred, or it's actually when ruminants get bred, in response to a fertilized follicle and development of pregnancy, the cow develops a protein that starts circulating in the blood that's pregnancy associated. So it's very specific to the pregnant animal only. And the blood-based test actually looks for that particular protein. And as you can imagine, so first when pregnancy starts, the level is very low, but as it progresses, the level gets higher and higher up to a certain threshold where a test can detect the levels. Mm-hmm. And then you can say pregnancy, yes or no. So that's in general how it works.
Okay. So what's our time frame as far as how soon could that be used?
The test that we're using detects in heifers. It takes only 25 days for the levels of that protein to come up and be detectable by the test. For cows, especially cows that have calved that year, it is quite different because the levels of the old calf have to go away first before you can test for the new calf. And that threshold is 73 days. But the super early detection time is for heifers only.
Okay, so that's...
So very early. Yes, yeah, very early.
Is there anything from a timing standpoint, is there a certain window that's ideal, or is it any time after 25 days for these heifers?
It's any time after 25 days. It kind of depends if you have a number of cows under your care that you want to know the pregnancy status. There might be at different times in the pregnancy. So it can be 25 or 40, and we like to actually know the days bred so that we can interpret the test correctly as well. Yeah,
that would make sense too. Okay, let's talk about drawing that sample and how is that done?
You have to use just a regular blood tube, and it can be drawn in a red top tube or in a purple top tube. The only difference between those two is the purple top tube has some anticoagulant in it that does not allow the blood to clot. And we actually will provide a rancher that's interested. You can purchase the tubes directly from us. And then we can also explain that when you get the purple top tubes, you can also tag on genomic testing off of that sample. But for the pregnancy test, both the red top tube, like the serum, or the EDTA tube will work just fine. So you would draw the blood sample. You have to record, obviously, carefully the ID of the cow, and hopefully you know the day's bred, and then submit the sample either with a submission form, like a hard copy submission form, or online to us. We apply the test to it. The turnaround time is the next business day.
Okay.
And then we will report results to you generally by email. And it'll be a report where it lists the name of the cow, and it actually lists the day's bred if you gave him to us, and then the response in the test, so that you can see by the numbers, how strongly the cow responded. And then it will say pregnant or open.
Okay. Where on the animal are we drawing this blood from?
People have different preferences. Usually the producers that I have seen actually draw from the tail, the base of the tail, but any place, we just need enough. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So the test cannot be run with just a couple of drops. We need a tube, probably, a half an inch at least, full of blood. And so venous blood out of the jugular vein, if you have the animal in the chute, is fine. Or, as I said, base of the tail is fine as well.
How quick, once you kind of get familiar and kind of get used to doing this, how quick can you be doing this?
I would say an experienced, either veterinarian or producer. Some people are remarkably good with using the systems. They will use a vacuum-assisted system because the blood tubes that you can buy have a vacuum in them. And then you push the tube. So you push the needle in and then push the tube against the needle in a holder. And then the vacuum in the tube will suck the blood into the tube. For an experienced producer, I want to say 30 seconds, 20 seconds,
really?
Something like that. Yeah, it's usually very fast.
Okay.
Now, if you miss, then you have to go again, and it'll take a little longer. But in the course of like working a cow in the chute or anything like that, it would not take a lot of time at all.
You mentioned a little bit about when you order these samples, there's things that you all would send in terms of those sample elements that they can use. Any other tools that you would need?
Well, some people prefer to collect into a syringe, but you cannot send the syringe, really.
Yeah.
You still would have to transfer the blood in the syringe into the tube. What we provide the person that is interested in buying this supplies from us is the needle, the sleeve that screws onto the needle and that you push the tube into. So you will get the vacuum-assisted system with the tubes that you purchase. And the sleeve is good for all the tubes. You don't have to change that, but you would obviously have to use a new needle for every cow so that you're not inadvertently transfer anything unwanted in the blood.
You mentioned it a little bit ago, and I want to just hit that one more time. What kind of turnaround are we talking? Let's say today I'm working cows. I draw a few samples. I get them sent off tomorrow. What kind of a turnaround how soon do I see those responses? I know you mentioned it just a little bit ago, but I want to make sure we hit that again.
Yeah, so it'll be the next business day from the day we receive the samples in the lab.
Okay.
So let's say you send it today and you go with the postal office and we receive them, let's say Wednesday morning. Then Thursday, by the middle of the day, you should have your results.
Does those samples need to be sent in any expedited form in terms of the sample staying good?
The sample stays good. So in the hottest of summer, we actually recommend to send with an ice pack so that the samples don't get cooked, essentially. Ideally, if all things were wonderful and it wasn't so expensive shipping stuff, we would say use a styrofoam container and put an ice pack in it to keep the samples cool. That's the best way to ship blood. But blood is actually pretty resilient, so can be at room temperature for a good long time. So even a week in transit is not going to be a big problem.
Okay. All right. So what part of the bovine industry, I guess, are you finding being used quite a bit?
It's a mix, really. So we're located in the Midwest, so we get a lot of beef clients, cow-calf producers. We do have quite a few dairies, though, as well. So I would say about 60-40% in terms of distribution.
So real quickly hit, the species that you can do this with is pretty broad.
Yeah, it's reasonably broad. So the majority of samples that we get is actually cattle. but we do get a fairly reasonable number of samples from goat producers and sheep.
Mm-hmm. So I know the question that everybody always gets to at some point is, what do you think it's going to be?
Cost.
There you go. Yeah. All right. So you read my mind. So, okay.
Yeah.
So what are we looking at per sample?
So for the cattle pregnancy, it's $3.50 per sample.
Okay. Any other costs on top of that, other than probably my shipping cost to get the sample to you? That'd be on top of that, correct?
Yeah, that would be on top of that. And if you have a good supplier for the tubes, by all means, if you want to purchase the tubes from us, I do think, we're competitive in the market. So it doesn't matter where the tubes come from. You can purchase from us, and then you get the little system, the vacuum assisted, so all the needles and the sleeves with your order. Otherwise, if you're set up already to do that, then the tubes is enough.
Okay.
And that's really all you need to draw the blood and, then labeling the tubes, so Sharpie and such like that.
Mm-hmm. And before we go, one more thing I want to hit. You mentioned it before because you said the ones in that purple tube, that would allow a producer, if you then want to get genomic testing done on that sample, you could do it with that sample, correct?
Yes.
And that's another service you guys offer as well.
And that's actually it's almost like a selection tool. It makes pregnancy into a selection tool, because if people want to see how easy their heifers become pregnant and they only want to genotype the ones that are pregnant after first service, then those would be the animals that you want to genotype.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you can choose, so you can wait for the pregnancy results and then choose if you want to move on to genotyping from that result.
All right. Well, Dr. Hinckley, I appreciate it. Real quick, where would people go if they're interested in looking for more information?
Well, Neogen has a website. It's just the neogen.com. And then if you want to type into the search box pregnancy, it'll take you to that page where you can order online. There'll be a form there that you can download and then put the information in. There'll be obviously animal ID is the biggest thing. And I would definitely say that it's very important to have good records, because the consequences of a pregnant result going with the wrong cow, or an open result, worse yet, an open result going with the wrong cow, that would not be a good thing. So all that information can be put in there, including days bred, and then you can submit an online order. It'll ask you, upon submitting, then we get to see it, and we have all the information that we need. Email address is important so that we know who to report back to. And then I will also say there have been times when, there's issues either with samples or they come in bad shape or tubes are broken. We usually try to inform the producer even before testing starts if there is issues, so that it's not a rude awakening afterwards. Mm-hmm. So we try to reach out to sample submitters and tell them, like when there's a holiday and delivery of results is getting delayed. So we always try to reach out and make sure people are aware of what's going on with their testing.
You bet. All right. Well, Dr. Hinckley, thanks again. Appreciate the information on this. I think it's interesting for ranchers or different folks, as we talked about the different species as well. It's not just cattle, but there's some other species as well. Sometimes for some of us, you got a goat in the back, or you've got maybe a dairy cow that's kind of a one-off, and some things like that. That's just easy to get a test done that way. So appreciate the information here today.
Yeah, absolutely. You're very welcome.
And again, that was Dr. Susan Hinckley with Neogen, explaining a little bit more about the workings and the details of the blood-based pregnancy test. And for some of you, you're probably thinking, well, did you fall off the turnip truck yesterday? Because they have been around for a few years. Yes, they have. But for me, it wasn't something I was completely familiar with. And I felt some other folks might find the conversation that we have about that valuable here on the program as well. Well, stay with us as we come back. In the break, we're going to get back into technology focus specifically on monitoring your water systems and some other elements within your ranch operation, as we're going to be talking with the folks at RanchBot. Stick with us. We'll be back after this break. Well, as I get set back down here in my chair and get ready for this next segment, I do have a fresh new cup of Cowpuncher coffee that I'm going to be working on through this next segment. But if you've been looking at maybe trying a different type of coffee, give them a try. Don't take my word for it. Try it yourself. Go to cowpunchercoffee.com, and they've got a lot of different varieties and flavors you can pick from, whether you like it whole bean, whether you want it ground. And if you're just not sure, try their sampler pack as well. Give Jim or Trish Williams a call, or if you really want to get some things done there at Cowpuncher Coffee with the folks there, have their kid in charge, Miss Olivia, help you out as well. They'll get you set up with a great cup of coffee. Grab a mug. Let's spur the day with Cowpuncher Coffee. Well, as I said at the very beginning of the program, talking about the fact that we would be looking at some different products in our industry today, technology continues to be integrated and play more and more of a vital role in reducing some of our overhead costs. And that really is at the heart of the features and the function of our next product that we are going to be looking at. I've got with us today Andrew Coppin, who is the CEO and founder of RanchBot. And Andrew, thanks for joining us here today on the Working Ranch Radio Show.
Great to be here, Justin. Thanks very much for having me.
Well, unfortunately, when I said RanchBot, I should have said RanchBot Monitoring Solutions, because that really needs to, that whole breadth of that name is really encompasses some of the things that we're going to talk about here today. First of all, I want to know just basically RanchBot Monitoring Solutions. Initially, just what is it?
Sure. So, I grew up on ranches in Northern Australia, Justin, spending a lot of time chasing bulls and driving around checking water that 95% of the time didn't need checking for the 5% of times that it does. And I didn't know that 30 years later that I would be founding a company that would be helping ranchers solve that problem, because the cost and time associated with driving to check water, that again, 95% of the time doesn't need checking, but we all know we have to do it. So it's for the 5% of times that it does. I thought, what if we could do that in a way to provide ranchers real-time monitoring of water anywhere on the ranch, whether they're cellular or not, and let them know when there's a problem, So ultimately, we started the company looking to solve that in a really affordable and efficient way.
Mm-hmm. So you hit on a few things, and we're going to get through some of those questions that I have of some things that you just mentioned as far as what are some of the elements that we're going to be talking about. Also affordability. I think that's a question that people are going to have, in addition to just how it's used in some of these very, very remote areas. First of all, what are the different components? Because I think the first thing is you said, okay, we're going to monitor that water thing. So the first thing I think of course, would be, storage or tanks. So let's go through some of these components, and then if I've got some questions about them, we can go into that.
Sure. Yeah. So we started out primarily monitoring water storages, 10,000 to 50,000 gallon sort of water storage tanks in remote areas. We sort of broke the technology in Australia, which is a vast country like much of America, and it's very rough terrain, and it's a tough environment. So we sort of tried to build the technology and break it down under, and then now we build it here in Texas, where I live. And, we've expanded the portfolio of things RanchBot can do to monitor dirt tanks, to be able to monitor water storages and water troughs. So we've sort of got a toolkit of things that allow ranchers to monitor. I guess our headline thinking is, if it's water and it's on a ranch and cattle are going to drink from it, or it's integral to that water supply for cattle, we should be able to monitor it in real time, tell you what's happening, tell you if the water's too high, tell you if it's too low, tell you if it's falling too fast, tell you when there's a leak, or tell you when the cattle are not drinking. So we've come up with a range of solutions that allow a rancher to do that. Again, the critical thing for us is that it's all near real time, because the only time to know you've got a problem with water on a ranch is right now. I'd have it to guess I'd probably say more ranch water systems than most people on the planet, but funnily enough, I've never seen a water problem happen while I've been looking at it. We all know that water problems in ranches only ever happen when I'm as far away from the problem as I can be, or it's Friday night on the wife's birthday or something similar. Water problems are always inconvenient when they occur. So the criticality of knowing when there's a problem, when there actually is a problem, is key to the sort of things we do.
Mm-hmm. You talked about the different types monitoring, whether it's in a storage tank, cistern type tank, as well as troughs. And then you would also mention the fact of being able to know how fast water's may be moving. So let's talk about that flow sensor element that's part of that, because there's a lot of different components. I can see that being valuable. So talk about the flow sensor element that's a part of this.
Yeah, so part of our IP that we've developed over the last sort of 8 years has been, how do we monitor water for ranchers and tell them what's happening without being annoying, without sort of crying wolf all day? You don't want a text message every hour. What you really want to know is when there's a problem. So in the algorithms and the technology that sit inside our devices, that sit near or on top of the water storage, we've created algorithms that allow our device to look all the time, to be checking constantly, but only telling you when there's a problem. And a problem is defined by the rancher by setting high levels, low levels, and critical rate of fall levels. So if we decide in a particular water storage that when the cattle are all there's 50 cattle drinking on a 100-degree day, that they're going to diminish that water by 6 inches an hour. Well, anything greater than 6 inches an hour, I want to know about. And so our technology can determine that not by waiting for 6 inches to fall, but by looking at the gradient and the rate of fall. Mm-hmm. And that's how we provide ranchers with real-time, highly accurate to within about a quarter of an inch readings on their water, and be able to call out when there are issues before there are issues.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the pump controller, because beyond just the monitoring of the storage tanks or water troughs, the ability to turn that well on or off based upon what is going on out on the ranch, whether it is a storage location or a trough location, and the need for water, the ability to shut water down. So explain your pump control system.
Yeah, so interestingly, once we solved the problem of not having to drive to check water all the time, and there's about 7,500 ranchers on our platform now doing that every week. The next thing that happened was they started to ask for other things, and pump control was certainly a big part of that. And so we now can turn pumps on and off remotely to know that they are working, to know that they're on, to know they're pumping, and we can link the pump controller to either the destination tank, the place it's pumping to, the origin tank, the place it's pumping from, or we can set a timer to do it within particular hours. So we're seeing a lot of ranchers set up for, when their solar's not on, they want another pump to kick in. In fact, now we're getting to the point where we can start a generator to start a pump to decide whether the water's going to go north and south. And you can imagine doing all of that from your cell phone or your desktop, or just having it programmed so it happens automatically, again, gives ranchers an immense ability to control things from afar, and also to have the peace of mind to know my pump is on and it's pumping. I can definitively see that, and I've got the water where I need it to be. So doing all of that from your cell phone to a satellite down to a pump in the middle of the desert is, pretty amazing. I mean,
mm-hmm. So you talked about that. You answered a couple of questions just there at the very end in terms of the connectivity. The ability to connect through satellite pretty much takes the ruralness concern out of it.
We chose to go with a satellite first solution because, in Australia, where we test drove the technology, there isn't a lot of cellular. And again, I spend most of my time here, now that I live here in Texas, with 2 phones because I'm never sure which network's going to work. So we thought, well, let's just go satellite and learn how to manage the costs of transmitting data through satellite. So we've come up with a couple of different things. I mean, again, the smarts are in the device to enable it to monitor things on the location, but only communicate with the satellite when it needs to. And also we can have devices that talk back to the ranch bot. So we can put trough monitors within 3 to 5 miles of a ranch bot, and it will talk wirelessly back to the ranch bot. So you can actually monitor not 1, but up to 10 different water points within the ranch using one device. So that keeps the cost right down, and it allows there to be one load of backhaul to the satellite, because that's the expensive bit of communicating with things in space, is how much data do I send? So we've sort of created like a mesh network of things that talk to RanchBot, again, with a strong desire to keep price down, but keep information to a maximum.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about some of these components regarding installation. Is it very difficult? What are we talking about for some of the installation pieces that are part of these components?
Yeah, it's a good point, Justin. I mean, look, I spent enough time on ranches as a kid to sort of know about these challenges, and certainly spent enough time on over 4,000 ranches we now look after these days to know that the words "we'll send a technician," bad words. Mm-hmm. We may as well poke a rancher in the eye. So part of our key mandate was, if we can't put it in a box, send it to a rancher, have them open it, not read the instructions, install it on their own in 5 minutes. We should never send it. And so that's sort of been the remit of the firm, is got to be simple, got to involve 4 screws, an on-off button, and be able to install it intuitively and make it work. For the most part, maybe with the one exception of pump control that has to be wired into things, all of our devices are a few screws and an on-off button, and then it's within minutes it's connected and talking to the platform. And our customer service team, they're all 3rd or 4th generation ranchers, predominantly based here in the central time zone in Texas. So super easy to install and super easy to use. As I said, there's about 7,500 users on our app on any given month now. And again, it's been made really simple. We use a traffic light system where you look at a Google map and with all of your monitors on it, red is bad, green is good, orange is something's not quite right. So at one glance, you can see, okay, where do I actually need to go today and where don't I need to go?
Mm-hmm. Andrew, let's say I'm not probably the only guy, but I know some of these operations, they might have a summer pasture that they're going to, and then they have, when they bring cattle in for winter, it's a whole different thing. Can I pick these components up and move them? What's that? Is that easy to do?
Yeah, it sure is. We made all the devices so they're pretty mobile. Certainly when it comes to our trough monitoring products where you can see the cattle drinking, we've just recently launched a trough direct to satellite. So you can literally pick up that device, undo one bolt and take it with you when you move the cattle and put it on the new drinker or trough where the cattle are, because we're certainly mindful of, different seasonal pastures and, but the desire to have that information. So certainly been a key part of our thinking on that for how ranching occurs, certainly in the northern states here in the US.
Mm-hmm. All right, just a short time here, Andrew, and I want to get to probably the question everybody's having in the back of their mind. And you always get, I'm sure this is asked after you've had these kind of discussions with folks. So what are we looking at for price in this? And I know some of that's going to vary by the components and how some of that's worked together, but just generally give us an idea, because I think for me, I'm looking at, okay, what are we looking at for cost as I look at integrating this?
Yeah, so we sort of have a toolkit, if you like, of things that can monitor water. At the top end, of course, is the ranch bot itself, which is about $1,490. So you think for the cost of one cow these days, you can monitor all of your water. Then we have the ranch bot Lite, which is a smaller version purely for monitoring water storages. It's half that price. It's around $600. And our trough monitoring products are closer to the $400 mark. So different tools for different jobs on the ranch. And then the ongoing operating cost of those, again, at the top end of town with the ranch bot, it runs at $1 per day for all of the platform, the service, the support. All of our products have a 2-year warranty and a lifetime service commitment for our team to always be there if you need help. So for $1 a day, I mean, you think, how far can I get in the Dodge Ram for $1, to check that water? And I guess one of the things that we've learned is this cost associated with driving to check things is an embedded cost in ranching. And, when people actually start to think about the hours, the fuel, the wear and tear on cars and motor vehicles, and even just trying to find labor these days is hard. So, for $1 a day, it represents exceptional value. We recently had a couple of ranchers do some hard numbers on it. I mean, I know one of them on a sort of smaller ranch thought that they were saving in the vicinity of $30,000 a year as a result of connecting their water through this technology. The lower products can run from as little as $1 a week. Our trough monitoring and rainfall devices that talk to RanchBot, they only cost $52 a year to run. So we think it's really affordable, and, we've intentionally tried to make it that way because, we want to be part of an evolving technology landscape for ranching that's here for the next generations.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, was the pump controller, was there a price on that, or is that part of the RanchBot?
Yeah, the RanchBot pump controller talks to the RanchBot, and that device is around $500. And again, you're talking about $1 a day operating cost to be able to turn your pumps on and off remotely. Whether you want to do it manually, you want to automate it, or you want to put it on a timer, you can do all of those things and turn things on and off as many times a day as you like.
Okay. All right, Andrew. Well, if folks are interested, first of all, where do they go to get more information? And then how are these products sold? Are they through retailers or through you guys directly?
Yeah, well, the best place to get more information is probably at our website, which is www.ranch-bot.com. There's phone numbers for our team that are all rancher folk that can talk you through things. We have some resellers around the country, and we're happy to trade with people that are in local markets and keep the money in your town. So there's a map on our website that identifies all of the resellers across the country, but our team are obviously more than happy to support any inquiries, of course.
All right. Well, Andrew, appreciate you joining us here today. Very interesting technology. Thanks for joining us here on the Working Ranch Radio Show.
Really appreciate you, Justin. Thanks very much.
You bet. And again, that was Andrew Coppin, who is the CEO and the founder of RanchBot Monitoring Solutions, joining us here on our program today. Again, if you'd like more information, their website is ranch-bot.com. Well, stay with us. Coming up after the break, the Captain Tim O'Byrne, editor of Working Ranch Magazine, will be in for this week's edition of Tim's 2 Cents.
Hey, Justin. Hey, everybody out there in Working Ranch Radio Land. Hope your week is going good. Justin, just flipping through this September-October issue of Working Ranch Magazine that just showed up in the mailbox here last week. Boy, we are just blessed with some great articles and photography. Again, as usual, just love them. Page 24, Times Have Changed. The Scharbauer Ranch weighs in on owning their beef from conception to consumption by Ellen Brizendine. She does a great job. And page 74, Cows Over Condos. This ranching family is stemming the tide of development one butterfly at a time. One butterfly at a time. You got to read this story. It's by our very own Katie Hutton. Her husband, very talented photographer, Rick, took the photographs. And I tell you, I got to thank you, Katie, personally, for coming on board as managing editor of the magazine here the last couple of years. You really helped me out tremendously. I rely on you a great deal, and you're doing an excellent job. Page 84, True to the Buckaroo. The Buckaroo Traditions Gathering celebrates the Great Basin region's horsemanship and stockmanship by Jennifer Dennison. Jennifer's been the editor of Western Horseman for years, and she's written a few articles for us lately and just always does an excellent job. Jennifer, thank you so much. And page 88, Building the Ideal South Texas Cow. The East Foundation knows it takes a tough cow to handle a tough environment, so they're building one, by Burt Rutherford. And this is a really great article as well. Lots of good information in there. And then finally on page 30, the Rancher's Journal, Patrons of the Prairie, Raising a Family and 1,000 Pairs on 23,000 Acres of Saskatchewan's Crested Wheat by Vanessa Ould. And I'll tell you, folks, if you're not subscribing to Working Ranch Magazine, go online real quick and just hook up with us, and you're going to really enjoy the magazine. It comes out 6 times a year. It's nice and thick enough to swat a badger with, and we're really happy to serve the industry, and we've been doing this for almost 20 years now, and we're very happy to have Justin on board doing the radio show and the podcast too. We're closing in on 1 million downloads. Hey, Justin? So good job, everybody, and we'll catch up to you down the road.
Well, if you like the idea of what we did here today for a show in regards to spending the show looking at some specific new products in our industry, let me know on that. It's not something we're going to do every week, but it is something that we could potentially do from time to time. And if you like it, let me know. Or if you have certain products you'd like us to look at and talk with the folks from those companies, let me know with that as well. You can send me an email at justin.workingranch@gmail.com. The Working Ranch Radio Show is a production of Working Ranch Magazine, branded #1 by America's ranchers. Thanks for joining us. I'm Justin Mills, and until next time, keep your chin down and your mind in the middle. So long.